Alright, all you digital board game playing champions out there, welcome back to the Indy Radio Arcade. And Maestro asked me during the break why in the world we didn't mention our real favorite line that was part of that movie, where Bruce Willis or John McClane was in the vents and he said, "Let's go out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs." And also didn't mention the part where he said, "Now I know what a TV dinner feels like." Yeah, you're right. We should have mentioned that part so we didn't tick off the censors, but come on. Yippee-ki-yay was one of the most classic lines in that movie, and not to mention some group out there, and I keep forgetting the name of them, but they're on YouTube, actually turned that into a song and made the, first 4 Die Hard movies into a full song with the full description of each movie? Yeah, lets you know how cool Die Hard really is. And no, Maestro, that wasn't a joke because it took place during Christmas. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's now time for us to go ahead into another Instant Classic edition of the Instant Classic Video Game Review. And the game we have up on the plate for you for this week, folks, is a digital version of the classic board game of Monopoly. And if you think this game won't destroy families, oh boy, let me tell you, it will. And the goal of this game is just like any typical game show you know out there. The winner in the end is the one who owns the most amount of property and has the most amount of money, or is able to dominate the entire board, forcing you to spend more time in prison than most. Yeah, and that's how bad it gets during the endgame situations. Just a warning, folks. Just a warning. And with that meat and potatoes explained to the silliest way we know possible, folks, what did I like about this digital version of Monopoly? Well, besides the fact that it includes every single rule that your parents came up with while playing this game when you were younger, is one thing we loved about this game. And what do we mean by those rules, folks? Well, one of the rules that they have during the game that you can add during it is the fact that if you land on free parking after passing home or go so many times, you can actually collect the money that's sitting underneath free parking, which can actually go all the way up to about $5,000 to $6,000, which could really help you out to own some properties in that game. Another thing that I liked about this game, speaking of the properties, is the fact that you get a chance to do different board game versions of Monopoly, including one that involves Los Angeles, California. And I think there was one for Vegas too, but the one that me and my sister kept doing during the game was in Los Angeles, and it did involve the La Brea Tar Pits, the 405 Freeway, and LAX. And I think those are the only properties I remember, but still, pretty cool. Another thing that I loved about this digital version of the game is the fact that nobody could really cheat in it unless they are trying way too hard, and the game will penalize you for it. Trust me, it will. Also, another thing that I loved about this game is the fact that they included all of the cool old school and a couple of new school pieces at that time for the board game, including one of the Monopoly 2000 pieces, which was pretty hard to find in most of the cases. Yeah, the fact that this game included it, thumbs up. And another thing that I loved about this game definitely had to have been the music that was involved in this game as well, which was some weird sounding music that the Monopoly man would occasionally sing and hum during the game while you're playing it. And trust me, folks, sometimes it's creepy, especially after certain people will go bankrupt in the game. And another thing, and last but not least thing that I loved about this game is the fact that when a character goes bankrupt and they own property in the game, you can actually win that said property in an auction. Even though in the version that I played over my house, the person who would get knocked out by the person who owned that said property would have to give up the property neither to the bank or to the community chest, or even give it up to the person that bankrupted them in the first place. And I think that's one of the rules you can actually change in the game if you wanted to. And also, before I forget, you can also trade property back and forth to save your bacon in the game and ultimately doom you in the later goings. Yeah, that's another thing you can do in this. Now, with everything that I liked about this game, what didn't I like about this game? Well, besides my personal vendetta for the battleship and the thimble in this game, not really many things that I didn't like about this game. Well, with the exception that the disc only worked on certain computers, yeah, that's about it. We really did love this game a lot, despite how many times we lost at it. Which tells you a lot, folks, which really tells you a lot. And with everything that we liked and didn't like about this game, with a question mark on the didn't like about it, besides personal vendettas against pieces on the board, what do we think they could do to improve upon this game? Well, one thing that I wish they would have added for Monopoly for this game is not only a multiplayer version of the game, which they already had, but maybe a story mode for you to unlock new and cool pieces for the game. Or even a chance for you to customize your own pieces for this game to include on the board for Monopoly. Yeah, I would have loved to see that. Or even the chance for you to customize your own board for Monopoly itself, involving your own town or even a place that you hang out at. Yeah, that would have been great too. And seeing the fact that we don't review games along the lines of gold stars, coins, letters, or bricks, we review games in only two ways, folks. Will there be a video game story in the near future for this very game that destroys families more often than less? And do we recommend this game for you, the fan at home of board games gone digital? Well, with the fact that I mentioned that I had a personal vendetta with the battleship and the thimble, I got a feeling I think the start of the month of Fools, or somewhere around the 29 days of greatness in February, we will have a video game story for this game involving my sister pulling off the heist of the century, probably of the millennium. And I'm still angry at her about it, and she knows what I'm talking about. She knows what I'm talking about. And do I recommend this game for you, the fans at home? Well, if you want to play a game that you used to play as a kid on a board game that you probably got from a toy store that got closed down 12 years ago and brought it to a digital form so it makes you hate your family all over again by the time you're done playing it, then I recommend you go out there and cop that disc. And I think it's still available, and it may be for free as we speak, because I do believe my sister got this out of a Cheerios box. Yeah, weird. Very weird. And I guess with that said, folks, we might as well head back into this music, and when we return, we'll be back with another edition of the Indy Wall of Fame, right after a word from our sponsors. So don't run out of quarters just yet, folks, and stay tuned.